course, Senator Drilon with us, who also used to chair the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats. Our MP, our most distinguished, obviously a frequent visitor, and always a friend here in the Philippines. We always welcome him, Mr. Sam Rainsy. Jules Maten, who is our country representative from the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, FNF, our liberal partner as well. And all of those who are here, thank you for making it rather early. Again, this is very significant for us. We also have Madame Chamura, and of course our other colleagues from the Sam Rainsy party. You will have time, obviously, to be able to raise some questions more pointedly to any of them, especially to Mr. Sam Rainsy, as we launch the International Parliamentary Committee for Democratic Elections in Cambodia. And we all know how difficult the situation is, especially for those in the opposition. But we have seen how the Sam Rainsy party and the solidarity that we have with them, the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats, has been able to push forward this cause for democratic elections and the greater respect for human rights in Cambodia. And so as sister parties in the region, we welcome this launch, and we of course look forward to many more and greater openings and opportunities, in fact, for not just the Sam Rainsy party, for greater democratization in Cambodia. Once again, good morning and welcome. Mabuhay po sa ating lahat.
Let me welcome once more our new friend, the Honorable Sam Rainsy, the Chair of the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats and a leader of the opposition in Cambodia. Let me also greet the Honorable Secretary Derek Acosta, the Congressman from the Lone District of Iloilo City, Congressman Jerry Treñas. We also welcome the Honorable Somura Tiolong, my good friend, and the Honorable Yim Su Van, both members of the Parliament of Cambodia, Mr. Jules Maten of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. It gives me pleasure to welcome all of you to the launch of the International Parliamentary Committee for Democratic Elections in Cambodia, or IPC-DEC. I have accepted the chairmanship of this committee, which is a gathering of like-minded parliamentarians expressing their solidarity to promote a full and inclusive democracy in Cambodia. I am once more pleased to be able to acknowledge the presence of the biggest opposition party in Cambodia and the leader of the democratic movement, Mr. Sam Rainsy. This committee is of paramount importance given in the light of the forthcoming parliamentary elections in Cambodia on the 28th of July 2013. It must be noted that in the past elections in Cambodia, a fellow member of ASEAN the election was reported to have been fraught with violence, fear, partiality, and fraud. Members of the international community, including the European Parliament, the Amnesty International, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, the Liberal International, among others, condemned the way the elections were conducted, as it failed to meet internationally accepted standards for a free, honest, and orderly election. I sit as an executive committee member of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, and we have passed resolutions calling for a free, honest, and orderly election in Cambodia as benchmarks for a working democracy. Ultimately, it must be the will of the people which sets the standard in choosing their political representatives who will speak for them in the legislature, whether here or abroad. This is what we want to achieve in this committee insofar as Cambodia is concerned. We want to persuade the Cambodian government to promote an environment of freedom, openness, where opposition parties and their leaders are given free and equal chance in the political process. It is only through this method that we are able to achieve an election that is credible. The Cambodian people's struggle is reminiscent to our own struggle to achieve free, fair, and credible elections. Filipinos gained their freedom from the colonial rule and from a dictatorship that curtailed free suffrage. Our young democracy was severely handicapped by an election system that was prone to fraud and abuse. Until the 2010 election, we always hear about charges of elections being manipulated and other forms of fraud being committed. It was only when we were able to computerize the electoral process that all these claims were, or a number or a majority, if not all of these claims were addressed. We can now look forward to a speedy and accurate counting of the votes, and we are able to minimize election cheating and other irregularities. We believe that everyone in a democratic system deserves nothing less. Cambodia people deserve nothing less. They should enjoy the freedoms of choosing their leader in an election where their candidates and supporters are free from harassment, intimidation, and violence. Through the International Parliamentary Committee for Democratic Elections in Cambodia, we will not only work together to ensure that the elections are fair, we shall use our organization in restoring democracy in Cambodia to the best of our abilities and thereby empower the Cambodian people to make a free and informed choice. In solidarity with many supportive parliaments all over the world, we believe that this goal could be achieved, and we will draw our strength from our members who share with us the vision of creating a better, freer, and more democratic Cambodia. Once more, let me thank all of you, the members of the press particularly, for joining us this morning on this very auspicious launching of this International Parliamentary Committee for Democratic Elections in Cambodia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you all for attending this ceremony for the launch of the International Parliamentary Committee for Democratic Elections in Cambodia. Today is a great day. It's a historical day for Cambodia. Today is the launch of this International Parliamentary Committee that will push for democratic elections in Cambodia, and I am sure will contribute to a long-awaited democratic change in my country. I would like, on behalf of the Cambodian people, especially of the democratic oppositions, we are represented today in Manila by 3 elected members of parliament, Mrs. Julong Somira, Mrs. Jem Saban, and myself. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Senator Franklin Drilon for his decision to chair this committee, to push for democratic elections in Cambodia next year. am very grateful to all our Filipino friends, especially those from the Liberal Party, who have been very supportive, very helpful, very hospitable when we are in need to fight for freedom and democracy in Cambodia. I would like to address just 3 points. One, why the need for democratic elections in Cambodia. 2, why an International Parliamentary Committee. And 3, why the Philippines. We start to launch this committee here with Senator Drilon as chair. Why democratic elections in Cambodia? Because elections in Cambodia are not democratic, have never been, except once in 1993, elections organized by the United Nations following the signing of the 1991 Paris Peace Agreement on Cambodia, and the UN intervened in Cambodia following that election. It was the ever largest intervention by the UN in order to restore peace and to begin a democratization process. And since then, elections have been manipulated. Thus, they don't reflect the will of the people, but they distort the will of the people. This is very clearly explained in the latest report by the United Nations precisely. Last month, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Cambodia, Professor Surya Subedi, wrote in his report, and this report is going to be discussed in Geneva at the Human Rights Council later this month. In this report, the UN Special Rapporteur stresses the need for democratic elections, for reform. In order to have democratic elections, he calls for reform of the election system, for a change in the composition and in the leadership of the National Election Committee, the body that administers elections in Cambodia. And this body is totally controlled by the ruling party, and you cannot have democratic elections under such circumstances. Cambodia is at a turning point. Mr. Hun Sen, our Prime Minister and leader of the Cambodian People's Party, a former Communist party. Mr. Hun Sen is, along with 1 or 2 African dictators, he is the longest serving leader in the world. And these elections next year, we all believe that if those elections were to be free and fair, then there will be a change in leadership. There will be a democratic change in Cambodia. Now, why this International Parliamentary Committee? This is an expression of international solidarity, especially among parliamentarians. I have had the privilege to know Senator Drilon and to know many other parliamentarians all over the world, and especially in the Philippines, who have always been very supportive of democracy in Cambodia and who have always expressed solidarity towards their parliamentarian colleagues in Cambodia in order to ensure that democracy will thrive eventually, not only in Cambodia, in Southeast Asia, and in the rest of the world. And this committee will be a permanent lobbying tool to push for democratic elections in Cambodia. All the parliamentarians who are members of this committee, and there are now about 80 members, 40 parliamentarians from Cambodia, from the two opposition parties which have just decided to unite. It is why the political landscape in Cambodia has changed. Now you have a united democratic opposition for the first time. And this is very, very hopeful, because from other countries' experience all over the world, in order to bring democratic change, the democratic opposition must unite first, and we have achieved this condition. So the political landscape in Cambodia has changed, and the balance of power has already started to shift. At the local elections, the opposition has made very important gains, and these gains will materialize on a much larger scale next year at the national elections, if those elections are democratic. This is precisely the purpose of this International Parliamentary Committee. And now, why the Philippines? Why this committee is launched this morning in Manila? Cambodians, not only Cambodians, many peoples also look up to the Philippines as a model of democracy in Asia, especially in Southeast Asia and within ASEAN. The people power started in the Philippines with EDSA a long time before the Arab Spring. The Philippines is also a signatory of the 1991 Paris Peace Agreements. Those agreements call for democratization process and call for democratic and genuine elections in Cambodia. 21 countries, including the major world powers and all Cambodia's neighboring countries, signed the Paris Peace Agreements, and they had committed themselves to ensure that the democratic process will go on smoothly in Cambodia. But the democratic or democratization process has derailed in Cambodia. So it is not only their right, but it is their obligations to help put the democratization process in Cambodia back on track. And why the Philippines? Because in the Philippines, we have many friends. We have people who share the same values as all liberals, as all Democrats, as all humanists in the world. We are very privileged to have friends and allies, such as Senator Duran, such as other members of parliament from the Liberal Party. But I am sure that those who support democracy and liberal values go beyond any political party. And I want to express my gratitude to the Philippine government and the Philippine people for their very precious support for democracy in Cambodia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's of course not a coincidence that this meeting takes place today here in Manila in the Philippines, and that it is initiated by Senator Drilon, who is an international liberal leader and is one of those politicians that is really quite unique, because he's one of those few politicians, I would say, who looks beyond the borders of his own country, who has a worldview and puts that in practice, and who is principled before looking at his own interests. And in a situation where across the globe, and certainly also in the Philippines, people tend to look with a certain cynicism at politics, I think he's one of the examples of what politics can and should be like. So it's not at all surprising that this initiative is headed by him here today. It's also not surprising because the Philippines, in many ways, has been a trailblazer, not only on this continent, but I think globally. Coming from Europe myself, one remembers, of course, that, well, only last year we celebrated 25 years of ETA revolution. And I remember in Europe, the revolution here was really the start of democratization across the globe. That's not why it happened, but that was the result. It was only 3 years later that the changes started in Eastern Europe, but also in Africa and in Latin America. A whole range of democratic revolutions, evolutions took place, and it all started here in the Philippines. So the Filipinos have been trailblazing in this regard, and that the Filipinos have their hearts in promoting democracy across the globe, and particularly in Asia, is no secret. It's no secret at all. Now, Sam Rainsy, of course, who is now one of the successors of Senator Drilon as chair of the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats, which supports democracy in Southeast Asia, not only in Cambodia, but has these activities in places like Singapore, very successly in Burma, Myanmar, and is working in other countries in a similar fashion under the leadership now of Sam Rainsy, as if he isn't busy enough in Cambodia itself. I think the activities of his party and the historic momentum that they seem to be having is important to Cambodia, but way beyond Cambodia as well. If we look at the regional cooperation, the ASEAN cooperation, it is without any doubt the case that a truly democratic Cambodia is also in the interest of the other ASEAN countries. We only need to look at what is happening at the moment in ASEAN with regard to whether or not ASEAN countries are working together in the face of the crisis created by the big neighbor up north, to know that this is the case, that there is an interest of everyone in ASEAN, particularly the democratic countries in ASEAN, that Cambodia moves in this direction, and the only hope for that is the new united opposition. So, as a foundation, as a Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, we are very proud to be associated with this initiative here today, and in support of the democratic opposition and democratic elections in Cambodia, and of the committee chaired by Senator Drilon. I should like to pay tribute to the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats here today. Of course, they've been mentioned before, but it's very much an initiative that they are also at the heart of. And it shows that when necessary, liberals can be in solidarity with each other in the field of democracy. And Secretary Nerika Costa, who has been active in CALT already for many years, I think is the living symbol of those activities. Again, we are very proud to be associated with this initiative here today, because at the end of the day, it's all about freedom. Thank you.